What's good, fam? It's Kyle Henderson, Andrew Bone. You know what we do on Tuesday night? We talk recruiting. Big week for the Alabama Crimson Tide. You got Kool-Aid announcing his commitment on Sunday. There's been some smoke with Xavian Sorey. We're here with Andrew Bone to break it all down following Alabama's 41-24 victory over the Georgia Bulldogs. First off, Bone, you had your book signing at Ramajamas, and then that same day, Alabama took care of business, beating Georgia. I mean, it's kind of like the same old story that we've seen. You know, people keep trying to take down the GOAT, but you know, you if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man, and certainly no one has been able to do that. You know, kind of what were some reactions? First off, just for some guys that were already committed to Alabama following that victory over Georgia.
Yeah, very positive. I spoke with several Alabama commitments just about the game, just how impressed they were, with the offense, how it can't be stopped, how excited they are about being in it here in the future. So, they're definitely excited about the future down in Tuscaloosa. I mean, we haven't. Yeah, it's hard to say we haven't seen an offense like this because when Tua was there, obviously the offense was humming. But I mean, it just seems like it's a different animal right now. And this is certainly an impressive offensive performance that they put on, against Georgia, against a team that many felt like was the best defense in the country. You never know. I mean, they still may be the best defense in the country, but this Alabama offense is something very special and some very fun for everybody to watch. And the offensive weapons that they have, and especially with the guys that they have in this recruiting class too, guys that are extremely excited about joining this program and being kind of the next in line to be a superstar. A lot of excitement around the Alabama football program right now.
All right, here with Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com. Remember, guys, you don't have to wait till every Tuesday to get your info. You go to BamaInsider.com, use that promo code to get behind that paywall. Promo code is simply Roll Tide, like Charles Taylor said right there. There's the promo code Roll Tide. What's up, Charles? Appreciate you joining us. We'll take your questions in just a few minutes. I want to catch up with Bone about a couple of items. And I think the first is, looking at your recruiting board on Bama Insider, we're talking about Xavian Sorey. And a lot of people feel that he might be headed to Georgia. Can it kind of paint the backstory on Xavian Sorey? While he might be leaning that direction, Alabama's probably not done recruiting a high target, right, Bone?
Yeah, that's right. I've seen some comments pop in about the background tonight. I'm actually at a friend's house this evening, so he's kind enough to let me use his space downstairs. So not at my house tonight, but at a buddy's house. So shout out to Jeff for letting me use his space this evening. But, with Xavian Sorey, this is somebody who's been recruited by Alabama for a long time. South Sincere, tremendous recruiter for the Crimson Tide, leading the charge there. And I think, with Sorey right now, I think the biggest thing is, he hasn't been back to Tuscaloosa in a while. He was able to get to Florida right before the dead period hit back in the spring. He did visit Alabama for Junior Day earlier this year, but has visited Florida, went up to Athens back in August. Even though he couldn't really meet with the coaching staff, he was able to see the campus and see everything. And Alabama right now has an outstanding linebacker class. They have 4 really good, talented linebackers. This is not, a situation where Alabama doesn't have room. Xavian Sorey is certainly a guy that, they want as part of their recruiting class. But, just from talking to different people, all the different sides, from the Florida side, the Georgia side, the Alabama side, it certainly feels like, Georgia may be the team to beat heading into a commitment here pretty soon. Now, does that mean Alabama is completely out of the race for him? Absolutely not. With him not, it's not like he's going to be signing when he announces his commitment. And I think Alabama, if he does not choose the Crimson Tide, I think they will continue to heavily recruit him. In terms of linebacker recruiting, this doesn't really change anything. This is an elite player that Alabama wants. It's not necessarily, hey, we absolutely have to get another linebacker in this class. So I don't really see them going after another linebacker. I think they're going to, if Alabama misses on him, they're just going to continue to recruit him. If they can flip him down the road, they'll be really excited. You never know. Maybe he'll commit to Alabama, but, just from talking to different people, it looks like he's probably going to go elsewhere at this time. But I wouldn't rule out Alabama just yet, even if they don't get his commitment here pretty soon.
Here with Andrew Bone of Bama Insider. Remember, all super chats tonight go to Andrew Bone. Appreciate the work that he does for us right here on BamaInsider.com. We'll talk more about his book later on in the show, but definitely we'll put the links in the description box to pick up the latest copy of Andrew Bone's new recruiting book. And looks like it's been getting some pretty good traction, so can't wait to talk later on in the program about that. Remember, you can find all of our information, obviously on YouTube, but, of course, on Bama Insider, but also search on wherever you get your podcast, the Bama Insider podcast. We got, tons of stuff on there along with this show as well. Bone, Kool-Aid, Gilbert McKinstry is about to make his commitment this coming Sunday. Why don't you go into it a little bit, kind of about the recruiting process, who's been recruiting him, what are the final schools, and, kind of explain kind of the last things that we should know about Gilbert McKinstry, the number one player in the state of Alabama, before he makes his announcement on Sunday.
Yeah, Kool-Aid, finally announcing that decision. We've talked about him, every single week on the show, almost every single day on the Bama Insider recruiting board. And, things have changed. It's kind of been an up and down roller coaster ride, the last several months with him. I mean, we all thought that Alabama was in the driver's seat early on. Then people started talking about LSU being the leader. And then, I would say in August and early September, all the talk was around Auburn. Now all the talk has kind of shifted back towards Alabama, and I think Alabama's got a outstanding chance to land his signature. Or his commitment. Excuse me. As of right now, the future cast is at 90%. I put in my future cast last week for Kool-Aid to Alabama, and I think that's who he's going to choose. I think the relationship that he's built with Nick Saban, Carl Scott, the defensive backs coach, who also recruits Kool-Aid. I feel like all those factors help out. Obviously, Alabama. Being known for its development of defensive backs, the history of the NFL draft. All those things really add up. And I think Alabama ends up getting his commitment on Sunday. He's going to announce at, I think, 4:15 on Sunday afternoon. That's Central Time. We'll have the complete coverage on BamaInsider.com. I know we'll be doing a live YouTube show just before his announcement as well, so people need to tune into that. But, I really like Alabama's chances in getting him. And, if they do, that's going to be their fifth defensive back commitment if Kool-Aid commits to Alabama. And I don't think they're, completely finished just yet at defensive back if they get his commitment, but he certainly would be a big piece to that final pie of the defensive back group.
Hey, Bone, I wanted to ask you, when we look at, let's say that Gilbert McKinstry does jump on board in this class and, spots are tight in the remaining class, does that rule out Terrion Arnold, or, kind of what's the play on that? Could Alabama get both of them? I mean, obviously it would be fantastic if Alabama did. So does Gilbert mean that no Terrion Arnold, or can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, well, with Terrion Arnold, elite defensive back from Tallahassee area, can play corner or safety. And I think he's pretty much open to playing either or. And he's certainly a guy that Alabama has recruited for a very long time. They still want to get him. I think in a perfect scenario, they will land both of those guys. But I don't think a commitment is going to come anytime soon for Terrion Arnold. He did recently tweet out that he's going to make narrow down his list here pretty soon to a top 5. And I expect Alabama to remain on that list regardless of what Kool-Aid decides to do on Sunday.
All right, here with Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com. Bone, as and you can post your recruiting questions now inside the comment box, and we'll get to them. I know that the spots are limited, so Bone, if you can kind of elaborate on a couple more remaining targets that fans should know about as we continue to march towards the month of November, and then we'll take some questions from our fans.
Yeah, I think, on the offensive side of the ball, not a lot of targets remaining out there. I think, definite, Brian Thomas, the Rivals 100 wide receiver out of Louisiana, remains a very key target for the Crimson Tide, somebody they really want, to finish out this wide receiver group that's just, absolutely outstanding. I think there's still, kind of some debate, whether they're going to take another offensive lineman. I think they're going to, kind of toss some ideas around, maybe, continue to recruit a few guys and, kind of figure out, what they want to do. But I don't think that's a definite, yes or no answer just yet. Defense, obviously, Xavian Sorey, as we mentioned, will remain a key target even if he commits elsewhere for Alabama. We've talked about Kool-Aid, talked about, Terrion Arnold as key defensive back target, Sage Ryan, another elite safety that Alabama's recruited for a long time. But, in my opinion, probably, an LSU lean, from Louisiana. I grew up an LSU fan, so probably more an LSU lean at this time. But I think the biggest question mark is what's going to happen on the defensive line. Several defensive end targets who are still out there. We talked about them just about every single week. Tumisi Adelier, Shamar Turner, Tyreek Sapp, JT Tuamola, all those guys are still out there. Tyreek Sapp is committed to Florida, but still recruited by Alabama a little bit. I don't really see Tyreek Sapp flipping, so I've really kind of been focused more on Tumisi Adelier, JT Tuamola, and Shamar Turner. Adelier just put out his top 3 last week: Alabama, Florida, and Texas A&M. It really could go either way. I mean, those schools, I think all of them feel like they have a good chance to land him. From Texas, was originally an Alabama lean, was considered a Florida lean. Florida was considered the number 2 school when he committed to Ohio State back in the spring. So a lot going on in his recruitment, and I just think that it really could go either way in his decision. So we'll see what happens there. Now, JT Tuamola, the 5-star defensive end from Washington. In my opinion, it's Ohio State followed by Alabama. The good thing about him is he plans on waiting a while before making a decision. He wants to wait until I think February, that last signing period to make that decision. So it might give Alabama a little bit of a chance if they can get him in on campus for an official visit. And then kind of the final big name who's still out there is Mason Smith, the number 1 defensive tackle in the country out of Louisiana. Obviously, Alabama has some really good defensive tackle commitments right now, but they're not going to say no to Mason Smith if he wants to jump on board. Many people think it's a LSU Georgia recruiting battle for him, but I still think Alabama's very much in the picture for him. Great relationship with Freddie Roach, the defensive line coach, but it's probably going to be tough. I mean, it's certainly going to be a tough recruitment. LSU's been considered the team to beat throughout his recruitment, but Alabama's still still churning along, still trying to get him on board. So we'll see what happens. But still several names out there that Alabama fans can continue to watch. We'll continue to talk about and continue to follow until they make their decisions.
All right, Bone, give Bombs a shout out. I mean, he's always hooking us up show after show. We really appreciate it. One of our top contributors always on the Super Chat. Remember, all Super Chats go to Bone. What are Super Chats? They're basically like a tip for the host or the co-host. So see the $ in the chat box, hook them up, and Bone, give Bombs a shout out.
Bombs every week, man. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Bombs always dropping bombs. We have a couple questions coming in, and Matt wants to know kind of latest on Shamar Turner. So if you can go a little bit more into Shamar Turner, I know you just talked about him, and you said that the defensive line targets obviously going to be key remaining going into this the remaining targets. But talk a little bit about Shamar Turner and what he would bring to Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, he's an elite defensive end. Somebody that Alabama's heavily recruited for a long time, and he visited Alabama for Junior Day earlier this year, and I think there've been points where I think Alabama has felt very good about him. They felt like he would jump on board. Now I see that future cast right now is at 100%. I don't know if that's correct. There was a few people, myself included, who put in some predictions back in the summer when we felt probably a little bit more confident about him. I would probably shift mine a little bit to unlikely, not unlikely, but just unknown at this time. I just think it's kind of a toss-up. We've been hearing probably for the last month or so that the in-state schools, may have an advantage with him, with Texas and Texas A&M, being pretty high on his list. But Alabama's not going down easily. I mean, they're continuing to press hard. I mean, Alabama's done extremely well recruiting the state of Texas the last several years, including this year. And, those Texas guys are trying to recruit him, to join them at Alabama. Kendrick Blackshire just lives right down the road from Shamar Turner. He's trying to recruit him. I think the longer it goes for him, the better of a chance Alabama's going to have. If he commits soon, I would not lean Alabama at this moment. I just lean, probably more so towards the in-state schools. But if he waits it out, if he's able to get back to Tuscaloosa, I think Alabama's going to have a real good chance.
All right, here with Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com. John would like to know kind of an update on Khristian Zachary.
Yeah, Khristian Zachary, as many people probably saw last week, he announced his commitment, I think, on Wednesday, committed to the 7. Whoever that may be. He had a top 6, so I'm guessing it's probably somebody that's not in his top 6, and we're probably going to see something happen, in the next couple days, I imagine. But I don't think it's going to be Alabama. I think Alabama's pretty stacked on the defensive side of the ball right now. And with the numbers crunch being as tight as it is, with Xavian Sorey still out there, even if he commits elsewhere, I think Alabama's going to continue to, press hard for him. I just don't see Khristian Zachary in Alabama's class. And I think if he makes a decision this week, that's probably going to be a final decision for him.
You guys have to watch that video, whatever it was. So Bone tweeted it out, or whoever, he tweeted it out first, obviously, and then Bone tweeted it. So I saw it on my notifications, and I go and check it out, and I'm like watching this, and I'm like, what is this? And then he's like committed to the 7. So you got to check it out. Whoever put that together, props. I mean, that was some elaborate stuff, and committed to the 7. So we'll see. Bone, when we talk about Sage Ryan, is he, all LSU? Kind of give us a quick update there.
I think so. Just from talking to people in Louisiana, most people assume he's going to go to LSU. I mean, his cousins, Kevin Falk, former LSU running back, is also coaching at LSU now, and he's recruiting him. So I think it's going to be tough for anybody to pull him away from the Tigers. But it's very interesting that he remains uncommitted, that he's still kind of enjoying the process. So we'll kind of see what happens there. But I definitely think that Alabama, is in his top 2. I think he put out a top 3 recently of Alabama, Clemson, and LSU, but probably more of a top 2 of Alabama and LSU.
All right, here with Andrew Bone, you could you hear the dogs barking, and Alabama already put the dogs away, so it's like no need to worry, fam. We're still good, and we'll continue to march on here with Andrew Bone at Bama Insider. Let's see, and just as I said, Kool-Aid will announce on Sunday. We'll have coverage right here on BamaInsider.com. So. Definitely, continue to hit that subscription button. Be sure and subscribe. Thumbs up go a long way for us. Super chats as well. All super chats go to Bone. Remember to follow us on Bama Insider, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, subscribe to our podcast. Just go to wherever you get your podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, whatever, and just type in Bama Insider. Another cool trick you can do is you can tell your Alexa, "Hey Alexa, play the Bama Insider podcast." Did that? I stumbled on that this morning, and I listened to our podcast from last night. So pretty cool. As we continue to march on through the show, see what else we got regarding the questions, and there's I think there was one on a couple class of 22 guys. Bone kind of inform, just like I did last week. As we start to turn the page to 2022, who are the guys that are already committed, and maybe a couple of key targets that people should know about as we kind of inch closer to the next recruiting cycle?
Yeah, 2022 is tough because as many people I guess may have forgotten, but you'll remember quickly is there weren't any spring camps, there weren't any summer camps, there was no evaluations going on. Coaches can't go on the road, so they're not going out and evaluating players this fall. I mean, they're getting highlight films, but they still want to see these guys in person. They want to get these guys on campus. They want to evaluate them. They want to make them go to work, and that's usually a big part of the summer. So many juniors come in for camp. You get a chance to really evaluate these kids and kind of make that decision. Are you going to continue to recruit them? Are you going to watch them in the fall? Are you going to try to invite them to junior days or to to games on Saturdays? And that just didn't happen this year. Alabama has 2 commitments right now, both in-state kids, and Jeremiah Alexander and Robert Woodyard, both linebackers. So trying to find who's going to be the quarterback of the class, who's going to be the running back. I think running back is certainly going to be a big position of need for next year's recruiting class. There's an elite running back in the state of Alabama, Emmanuel Henderson from Geneva County. Alabama certainly recruiting him. Who else are going to be kind of the key positions of need in next year's recruiting class? They're loading up on offensive linemen, on defensive linemen, on defensive backs. So I certainly think outside linebacker, edge rushers in next year's class. I think interior offensive linemen going to be a pretty big priority. Running back's going to be a big priority. Tight end's going to be a priority. And also special teams. I think they're certainly going to try to find a kicker, maybe even a punter in next year's recruiting class.
Here at the Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com, as we continue to move through our recruiting show every Tuesday, please hit the thumbs up button. We appreciate it. We got 267 people online right now, so we should have 267 thumbs up. Do it right now. Hit the thumbs up button. We really appreciate it. Super chats go tonight to Andrew Bone. Ronnie wants an update on Jared and Gilbert.
Yeah, nothing really new with Jordan Gilbert, and he's certainly kind of keeping things close to the vest right now in terms of not really saying much about his recruitment. I think with him and probably a lot of schools, everybody just kind of taking that wait and see approach. I do think Oklahoma, probably pushing for him a little bit harder just from talking to our guys over at Sooner Scoop. I think he's a top priority for the Sooners. With Alabama already having 4 defensive back commitments, with Kool-Aid, with Sage Ryan, with Terrion Arnold, all still out there. I think it's going to be tough for Alabama, to take a commitment from Jordan Gilbert right now. Is he still on Alabama's radar? Absolutely. I think they really like him a lot, but I also think they're going to kind of wait and see what happens with these other guys before they make a strong move.
All right, here we go. Continue on the show. We got, let's see. John wants to know about Tanner Bailey and how he's doing this season. And do you think he could be a top 100 Rivals player after his season?
Yeah, he was having a pretty good season before he broke his collarbone. I think it was more of a hairline fracture, and I think he's trying to get back, maybe a little bit later this season. So a little bit of an injury, a little bit of a setback for him. But yeah, I think he's got a lot of talent. He's certainly one of the top players in the state of Alabama for next year. He's got pretty good size, got a good arm, and he did grow up an Auburn fan, grew up in an Auburn household, but he's visited Alabama a lot. He's probably been to Alabama more as a recruit in the last couple of years than he has at Auburn. So, Alabama really likes him a lot early on. They're certainly going to take a quarterback in next year's recruiting class, even though they signed Bryce Young last year. They got Jalen Milroe this year. They're always going to try to take a quarterback, and he's certainly one of the top 2 or 3 guys on their recruiting board right now.
All right. Next up, we got Daniel. He's asking if Alabama is trying to flip anyone kind of late in this recruiting cycle for the class 2021, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's always a few guys that are out there that Alabama's still trying to talk to, still trying to entice to flip to them. Xavier Worthy out of California is committed to Michigan. That's somebody that Alabama has always been very high on, somebody that they really like a lot. But as of right now, I think he's very solid with Michigan. He's also an early enrollee, so it's going to be pretty tough for Alabama to flip him, especially without him visiting Tuscaloosa and not being able to take official visits. Tyreek Sapp, as we mentioned earlier in the show, Florida commitment, defensive end. Still very, committed to Florida, but, just recently mentioned Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia Tech, all schools that are still recruiting him pretty heavily. But as of right now, I also don't see him, flipping his commitment from Florida. I think, especially with the recruiting dead period continuing to get extended, it's just tough for anybody to flip because they're not able to take visits. So, and that, that's a good thing for Alabama too, because there's some guys on Alabama's commitment list, still being pursued by other programs, and they're not going to be able to visit those schools. So that's a good thing for the Crimson Tide.
Bone, I wanted to ask you about Nick Saban real quick. And this is kind of a question coming from me. There's post your comments inside the comment box for Andrew Bone. But after watching, and I made an observation on this following Alabama and Georgia, it was about Nick Saban and kind of just I felt that him being out for just a couple days for whatever it was, and then coming back, it almost like rejuvenated him. And I think with you, everybody saw him dancing with the players afterwards. This guy, he's clearly not going anywhere. Did you kind of get the same impression watching Nick Saban on the sidelines from, his energy level, and then after kind of dancing with the players around? This guy is everything you want in a head coach. Talk about kind of Nick Saban and if you saw that as well, because I certainly did.
Yeah, I think anytime people start doubting Coach Saban is when he really kind of rises up and proves everyone wrong. We've been hearing that Alabama's dynasties was ending for the last 5 or 6 years now, and obviously it hasn't. And they continue to recruit lights out. They continue to beat top programs week in and week out. And I heard from a former assistant coach at Alabama last weekend, before the game, that they felt like this might be the changing of the guard in the SEC, because this was Kirby's best team. He had such a strong defense, and he's been there 5 years, and this was going to be his moment to to upstage Nick Saban, and it just didn't happen. I mean, the master continues to teach the students. So it was a pretty impressive performance. I know Nick Saban, I'm sure he liked that win a little bit more than some of these other ones. So it seemed like he had a lot of fun there after the game. Obviously, we all saw him dancing, and I just don't know if I've ever seen that before. I mean, we've seen the the dance moves he's had with recruits' families and stuff, but dancing like that in the locker room with the players after the game, I think that was really cool to see, and it was probably really cool for the players and even recruits to see as well.
All right, Bone. And I have another follow-up question. I just have to ask you about this. You were watching the game. You've been covering Alabama for a long time. You see Will Reichard step up there. You see him knock down the 52-yard field goal. Alabama clearly has their field goal kicker, right? Talk about Will Reichard. And, I mean, now he's a sophomore. I mean, did you know that Will Reichard was going to be this good? I mean, is he going to be this good? I mean, or, kind of talk about A, the 52-yard field goal, and then B, kind of about Will Reichard.
The running joke, for the longest time has been, these top kickers in the country come to Alabama and, they end up being the worst kickers in the country by the time they leave Alabama. Will Reichard was one of the top overall kickers in the country. I think he was number one kicker in the country. And I felt like I'd seen him a few times at Hoover, and I just had very strong belief in him. I really felt like he was going to be a great player at Alabama, and he was finally going to be the guy to get Alabama over that hump, over that kicking slump they've had for the last several years. And obviously he's doing really well. People kept asking me, well, why isn't Alabama going after a kicker? Why won't they sign a kicker in this recruiting class? I'm like, well, they have Will Reichard there. He was injured last year. Let him come back to being healthy, and he's going to prove a lot of doubters wrong. So I'm glad to see him doing well, and I'm sure Alabama fans they're going to have a little bit more confidence when he steps out there on the field, because I think every time a kicker kind of stepped out on the field the last few years, and even when he stepped out there for that 52-yard field goal, I think a lot of people were thinking, well, is this going to be a disaster? Hopefully nobody's back there going to return it for 6 points, but he's certainly proven a lot of people wrong, and definitely one of the I think he's one of the MVPs of the team so far.
That's what we said. I mean, last time we were talking kind of post-game cigars, and we're talking Will Reichard. He got to with the 52-yard field goal, because I think, talking about that game, he goes in, gives the team so much momentum coming out. We continue our recruiting show with Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com. My name is Kyle Henderson. Please hit the thumbs up button. We appreciate you guys being here. Thank you very much for watching, William. We appreciate it. You guys coming from Georgia. Thank you very much. All right. Hoop Ninja wants to know, any chance that McKinstry becomes a 5-star down the road?
Yeah, it's possible. Obviously with 5 stars, players, that move up, it means somebody has to move down. So who's going to move down? There's a lot of guys that are out, or a lot of recruiting analysts who are out there in the country right now evaluating players. I know Kool-Aid was seen earlier this season. I mean, I think he's going to have a chance. He's playing in the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. As long as that continues to happen, I mean, we saw that it's not the U.S. Army anymore. It's just the All-American Bowl in San Antonio was officially canceled. So that kind of eliminates an opportunity to see, all the 5 stars and Rivals 100 and top players in the country compete, for a week, not just in the game, but, compete every single day at practice. Will the Under Armour game end up getting canceled as well? It's very possible. So, it really eliminates some good opportunities for players to move up in the rankings. He's pretty high in the rankings right now. I think he's, at least on Rivals. I know some other sites have him 5 stars, but he's number 51 overall in the country. That's, let me tell you something. If you're in the Rivals 100, you're a very good player. Yeah. And he's rated as the number 2 cornerback in the country. That's still a very good, outstanding football player. So regardless if he's a 5-star, if he's in the top 100, I think, anybody who gets him is going to be very excited.
All right, here we go. Paul Robinson, back to Emmanuel Henderson, said decision coming soon. Alabama in the lead. You said that Alabama's probably going to take a running back, I think. I know you already talked about Henderson, who, by the way, has a fantastic last name. So kind of hook Paul Robinson up there.
Yeah, well, Emmanuel Henderson is going to be interesting because I do think that it will come down to the in-state schools, Alabama and Auburn. I think Auburn was kind of the favorite early on for him. He also really likes South Carolina. South Carolina was his first offer, so likes the Gamecocks. But I do think it comes down to an in-state recruiting battle for him. We'll have to just wait and see. Alabama certainly likes him a lot, and I don't know if people are still questioning, is he a running back or is he a wide receiver possibly at the next level? I think that was, something a lot of schools wanted to see this summer, wanted to get him on campus, wanted to evaluate him a little bit more. But I think, he's an elite player, definitely one of the top overall players in the state of Alabama and in the country. Alabama would certainly accept a commitment from him if he wanted to commit. So we'll have to just wait and see.
All right. Nitro's like, is Jeremiah Alexander solid? He seems to love UGA.
Well, I think, UGA certainly, continuing to push hard for him. They like him a lot. He likes them a lot. But he's committed to Alabama. He's an in-state, the good thing about him is he's an in-state kid. He also, saw Alabama, what they did to Georgia on Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium. So I certainly think that helped. Now, if Georgia would have gone down to Tuscaloosa and beaten Alabama pretty good, I would probably say, I'm not sure. And I think that Georgia had us a good chance to flip them. And, they still might. You just never know what may happen in the recruiting world. If a coach may leave, if assistant or a defense coordinator or somebody like that, and somebody that they have a connection with, a relationship with, ends up going elsewhere. You never know if that may affect somebody. But as of right now, I think he's still remains pretty solid with Alabama. But Georgia and other schools are going to continue to fight for him, just like Alabama tries to pull away other guys who are committed elsewhere.
All right, here's a recruiting question, not really pertaining to 2021 or 2022, but talking about Patrick Surtain. As we look back, Bone, and I know you do a fantastic job at kind of the recruiting rewind. If you kind of rewind to Patrick Surtain, who did it come down to before he chose Alabama?
Yeah, it was an Alabama LSU recruiting battle for a very long time now. Early in the spring, summer, all we heard was LSU. It was a stone cold lot LSU. But then when the fall kind of came around, everything I kept hearing, and you probably go back on the message boards and search for it, but all we kept hearing was, Patrick Surtain and Tyson Campbell, teammates at American Heritage, and Tyson Campbell, outstanding corner for Georgia, that Alabama was going to get one of those guys. They weren't going to get both, but they had a great chance to get at least one. Nobody was sure which one Alabama was going to get. A lot of people thought it was going to be Tyson Campbell just because Patrick Surtain was considered an LSU lock. Well, probably I would say 2 or 3 days before signing day is when we really started hearing, Alabama buzz with Surtain and buzz on Georgia with Stevenson. So, I think we kind of went out on a limb and predicted him to Alabama, even though the LSU guys and they do a good job. Everybody at LSU was still pretty confident that Surtain was going to LSU. So I think that was kind of a little bit of a shock to them when he announced his commitment to Alabama. But I think we ended up making the right prediction there. And obviously he's had a great career.
Absolutely. All right. Tia Carter. What's up, Tia? Again, with the amazing graphics. Follow Tia on social media for the best graphics. Trying to get her to do some work for us. Tia. You heard me. I'm asking you. We are favored with Arnold. I'm shocked Sorey is leaning towards UGA. I also thought he was waiting until signing day to commit.
Yeah, I think with Sorey, that was that was kind of the general feeling too, that he was going to wait until signing day. And I felt like if he did, I always felt like Alabama was going to be able to pull that one out. I just, I hadn't felt really that confident about him. I knew some other people, kept saying that Alabama was in the driver's seat, and even some guys from Rivals said that, but I just never felt that way. I always felt like it was, more so Georgia and Florida, and if he waited all the way until the end, then Alabama could pull him off. But I just, as of right now, I think he ends up going to, at least committing to Georgia as of right now. Terrion Arnold, it's going to be interesting to kind of see what happens with him because, some people down in Florida really think that he ends up going to Florida. Georgia's high on his list. Alabama's high on his list. We always felt like Alabama was in the driver's seat. But if Alabama gets a commitment from McKinstry this weekend, that's going to be 5 defensive backs. Now, that doesn't mean they're all, 5 going to play the same position. But, will that potentially affect his recruitment. It won't affect his recruitment from Alabama's perspective because he remains a top priority for the Crimson Tide. But will other schools use those numbers against Alabama when they're recruiting him? So we'll see what happens, but not really expecting a commitment from Terrion Arnold anytime soon. Still think he's going to take it all the way down until signing day.
All right, here with Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com, coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. That is not a backdrop and behind Andrew Bone. He is at a remote location. So everyone's like, is that a green screen? Like, what is going on with Bones? But he's out. So and he's on the show. So post your recruiting questions while we have a few more minutes here on the show. And of course, all super chats go to Andrew Bone tonight. And I'll read a couple more comments as we continue to cruise through. 417 people watching right now. We should have 417 thumbs up. So hit the thumbs up button on this video. It really helps our channel grow. Honestly, we're almost to 40,000 subscribers right here on our YouTube channel, something that everybody on here has been a part of. And, so continue to like, subscribe, and share our channel with other Alabama Crimson Tide football fans. Matt, we already talked about Brian Thomas, and Andrew Bone had a lot to say about him. You can rewind to the beginning of the show to get that. And we got a couple questions from you earlier. So thank you very much. Let's see what else we got on here as we continue to roll through. I actually wanted to ask you about one other thing, Bone. I kind of like to throw some other topics your way because, I'm on with Andrew Bone. We got to talk Alabama football, past, present, in the NFL. And this one, it came to Tua Tagovailoa. It was 2 for 2, 9 yards against the Jets. And then we get the news today that Tua Tagovailoa has been named the starting quarterback. Bone, what are your thoughts on now Tua Tagovailoa being the starter for the Miami Dolphins?
Well, that's awesome. I think, very special for him to be named the starter. Yeah, especially with, the Dolphins. It's not like the Dolphins are looking bad. They've won, the last couple of games, and they've looked good against great opponents. They've had some, absolute shootouts, and I think Ryan Fitzpatrick's done quite well this year. But it definitely seems like, the Dolphins are ready to see what Tua can do, and rest of the world's ready to see what he can do. He's certainly, he's such a, kind-hearted guy. Certainly somebody that, everybody just gravitates to. And, I think, him going in, the other day was pretty spectacular. He, went in there, completed, 2 of 2, looking right there, 2 of 2 for 9 yards. So that was pretty cool to see. And now he's going to really get a chance to, to go out there and make some big plays. So really excited to see him. And hey, guess what? If you want to know more about his recruiting journey, you can pick up my book.
Perfect.
So you can, my book, The Road to Bama. We got a chance to, interview several former Alabama greats, their life growing up, their recruiting journey, from Leroy Jordan to Johnny Musso, Cornelius Bennett, David Palmer, D'Amico Ryans, to Rashawn Evans and Trent Richardson, and all the way to Tua. So each chapter kind of tells their story. Interviewed every one of them. Interviewed coaches, interviewed parents, interviewed mentors, high school coaches, assistant coaches from other schools who recruited them. The whole shebang. So a lot of fun to read. I think a lot of people will really enjoy it, and it was a great great story for me to tell.
All right, Bone, we can, I'll put the links in the description box. Are you planning any more, book signings that'll be in Tuscaloosa? I know you had one at Rounders, and obviously we're there at Rounders to have some fun with Mick. But the following day at Ramajam, it sounds like you had a fantastic turnout. Kind of tell people where they can come and get the book signing, and we'll be sure to notify people on our social media channels.
Yeah, so for most home games, we are going to continue to do Ramajamas on Saturday morning. So and I'll tweet about it if there's a reason I'm not there. We'll make sure people know. But we will try to continue to have the Saturday mornings at Ramajamas. This weekend, if you are in the Birmingham area, I will be at the Grocery Brew Pub in Homewood from 12 to 2 o'clock, right before the Alabama-Tennessee game. So come by there, have a beer with us and get a book. And then I think a week from Thursday, we're going to be at Slice Pizza in Vestavia here in Birmingham. So be sure to come by there as well. And I know that I believe the next home game, I think on Friday night, we'll be at Innisfree. Yep. We'll be doing the live show for the Bama Insider pregame show live from Innisfree. And so I'll be there signing books as well. So we'll be pretty busy. It's kind of different this year because with COVID-19, a lot of these traditional bookstores like Barnes&Noble, Books A Million, aren't really doing any book signings this year, which is unfortunate. But we're making do with what we got, and fortunately, we got a lot of great friends and people out there that want to host us. So very thankful for them for allowing us to have book signings at their locations.
All right, we'll take a couple more questions and we're going to break out. And Eric wants to know, he's like, why can't we find an elite tight end? Who is recruiting tight ends? What's going with the tight ends? When you look at Alabama's tight ends right now that are playing for Alabama, you have Miller Forrestall, you have Carl Tucker, who actually didn't play this last game, so we kind of need to dig into that a little bit more. You got Cameron Latou, who was actually recruited as an outside linebacker, and then you got Jahill Billingsley, who laid a fantastic block during this Georgia game to spring Najee Harris like a 14-yard run, but he only played in 5 snaps. Why do I know how many snaps they played? Because you can get all that information at BamaInsider.com. I update the entire roster with so much information. You'll be blown away. Check it out at Bama Insider. Bone, take it away on the tight ends.
Hey, I love Robbie Oates. I think Robbie Oates is great. I think he's a great football player from Rock Hill, South Carolina. I really wish we'd had camps during the spring and in the summer. We had a chance to see him a little bit more. But I think he's certainly one of the top tight ends in the country, and I think Alabama feels that way as well. Now, last year it was a little different because I wouldn't say there was a lot of elite tight ends, but there were 2 really special guys, and Eric Gilbert, Darnell Washington. Alabama unfortunately missed out on those guys. They ended up landing, Caden Clark, but they just didn't get another guy on board. But I think with Robbie Oates, they're pretty excited about him. I think next year, they're really going to have to try to, land, somebody who can stretch the field, see if they can find an elite pass catcher. Obviously, Alabama's got some great pass catchers on their team, but we'll see what happens there. But I think they're happy with Robbie Oates so far. There's just not really a lot of elite tight ends out there. I mean, I know, people will go on there and look at the, guys who are in the Rivals 100 or the Rivals 250 and say, well, why can't we land some of those guys? Well, not all of those guys are even being recruited by Alabama. A guy like Robbie Oates is, higher on the Alabama's recruiting board than, some of these other guys who are out there. And a lot of elite guys who play tight end in high school are also recruited to play defensive end at the college level, and they love playing defense. So it's not like there's just a plethora of elite tight ends who are out there. But I think Alabama's got a really good player in Robbie Oates, and somebody they're really excited about. I know fans may want to see a 3-star, 5.6. This is a guy who was rated that before he got any offers, and then no camps happen, so you don't get any evaluation periods to go out and evaluate them and rank them appropriately. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think Alabama's got a good tight end in this class, and they're pretty happy. And plus, the Caden Clark last year ends up taking a gray shirt, so he'll be on campus in January. So they're bringing in a couple tight ends.
All right, here with Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com. We'll be here just for a few more minutes. If you have a recruiting question, you could dump it in the comment box. Otherwise, we'll catch you at BamaInsider.com. Tons of coverage all the time on BamaInsider.com. Remember that free promo code is simply Roll Tide. We'll probably have another more advanced promo coming up, so stay locked on because something really good is coming your way. Someone's like, Eric Gilbert's commitment still haunts me. No, I get it. A lot of Alabama fans probably feel the same way. But I believe in Jahlil Billingsley. I think he's going to be pretty good for Alabama here throughout these next couple years. I really like what he brings to the table. All right, so let's see. We'll take this one right here. Latest on Camar Wheaton. See, does he still have a spot? Doesn't seem like Alabama is going to take a running back, right, Bone?
They're not. I mean, I keep seeing Camar Wheaton's name pop up, every now and then. But I get it. I mean, he put out a top 3, a couple months ago of Alabama, LSU, and Oklahoma. And Alabama's offense is something that everybody wants to be a part of. And Najee Harris is having an unbelievable season, so it must mean that Camar Wheaton, probably will start looking more at Alabama. I wouldn't buy into that kind of stuff. I think anybody who puts Camar Wheaton's name out there as a legit possibility is completely wrong. I think Alabama's very happy with the 3 running backs that it signed in last year's recruiting class. Would they take a commitment from Camar Wheaton? Absolutely. But Camar Wheaton hasn't been reaching out. He hasn't been talking to Alabama much lately. I think he's pretty firm. I don't want to say firm, but I think he's very strongly leaning towards Oklahoma. I think that's probably where he's going to end up going. LSU might be in a little bit. I don't know, but I just don't think Alabama is very much involved there anymore. And, probably not going to talk too much about him on Bama Insider, any longer. I just don't see Alabama signing a running back this year, and I definitely don't see them signing Camar Wheaton.
All right. Before we go, this is going to be the last thing, Bone. All right. Okay. I want you to tell us about Mac Jones and kind of the recruiting story before he came to Alabama. I know he's committed to Kentucky, but just like Ronnie's saying, I mean, the way this guy is balling out, I mean, it's something special. I hope you guys appreciate what you're seeing right now because Mac Jones is doing something very special. Here's his passing chart. I won't talk about it too much. I'll let Bone get to it, but I'm just telling you, look at those passing numbers to the outside right, outside left, and between the numbers, 20 yards downfield, all grades over 90%. Bone, talk about Mac Jones before he was at Alabama.
Yeah, like you said, Mac Jones, he was committed to Kentucky for a while. And it was pretty interesting, kind of, the whole dynamic of what happened. He committed to Kentucky, I think, during the fall of his junior year. Jake Fromm was committed to Alabama. Jake Fromm ends up decommitting from Alabama, committing to committing to Georgia. And then all of a sudden, Alabama ends up landing Tua, and then a month and a half later, they end up getting Mac Jones to flip from Kentucky. So I think Mac Jones kind of came in thinking that, he had a lot of confidence coming in. I know that he was, very, very confident. I remember seeing him at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge and, did really well out there. And it was something that, Tua didn't attend. Tua, if for some reason or another, did not make it to the 5-Star Challenge. Mac Jones did and looked great out there. And I think he was very confident, going to Alabama. Obviously, he's had to wait his turn a little bit, but, I felt like he was going to end up, being that replacement for Tua once he left. And, he's certainly having an unbelievable season. And, I think that he's got a good chance to, potentially be a first-round draft pick if he continues, the way he's been playing. I mean, he's been just so accurate, so deadly, throws a pretty ball, and certainly a guy that is having a great season so far for Alabama.
All right, good stuff. And before we go, I just want to read off his stats real quick. I mean, look what he's done. I mean, he's 90 of 115, 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The efficiency is 220. So if you want to talk team football, if you want to talk about the team, a great time to do that is tomorrow night. I'll be taking your calls Wednesday, 8 p.m. right here on our YouTube channel. I might even do the show earlier. I'm so amped to talk football with you guys. So call in line will be open tomorrow night. I'll take your calls. Bone, do you have a good time tonight?
Absolutely, guys. Thank y'all so much for following the show. We'll certainly continue to keep you guys updated. I'll have a story out tomorrow sometime, not sure, probably a little bit later in the afternoon, just kind of breaking down the recruiting class, tossing out the remaining targets who are still out there, kind of where things stand. I know we talked about a lot of guys tonight, but we'll really go in depth on it tomorrow on BamaInsider.com.
All right. Hit the thumbs up, fam. Like, subscribe, and remember to search for our podcast on Bama Insider. So trying to build up that podcast as well. Inching closer to 40,000 subscribers right here on our YouTube channel. He's Andrew Bone. I'm Kyle Henderson. Together back at Bama Insider, you can get all the coverage along with team writer Tony Zukalis and Mick Gillespie, new to the staff as well. Tons of coverage coming your way from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama, as we gear up for Alabama and Tennessee week. Have a great week, my friends, and we'll catch you tomorrow night right here on Bama Insider.